Mish and Tom Vecchio. Halfway point of the season has passed us. We're more than 81 games into the Major League Baseball season, approaching the All-Star break as well. Great to be with you here this weekend on the show. Tom, hard to believe. It feels like we were just back here in March and April getting ready for the season, but we are officially more than halfway done.
Halfway point in the season, the actual halfway point, the non-actual halfway point with the All-Star break is coming up. We'll certainly discuss a little bit of that later. A lot to get to. We know who the pretenders and contenders are at this point. Trade deadline, the looming CBA, you name it, we're ready to talk about it.
So let's get started and hit on some of the really good things that have happened in this first half of the baseball season. One has been the first place Milwaukee Brewers. And Tom, they just continue to develop pitching basically like no other team in the big leagues. In fact, the last pitchers in baseball with 10 plus strikeouts, no walks, and one fewer hits in a game have been the Milwaukee Brewers. The Miz on June 12th, Brandon Woodruff on Monday, Brandon Sproat on Tuesday. It's just incredible. You think of them losing Corbin Burns and losing Freddie Peralta, and honestly, I mean, Woodruff probably isn't the pitcher that he was 4 or 5 years ago, but man, they seemingly get it figured out every year. We didn't even talk about Harrison, who's having a great year too.
Yeah, they seemingly have all the pieces, and whether it's calling players up and working them into the rotation. You know, a year and a half ago, I thought we were going to have an arms race between the Brewers and the Braves at a certain point with Strider on his way back and Smith-Shawver and Schwellenbach. I thought we'd have like these two powerhouse NL teams with great young pitching talent, and the Brewers have seemingly leapfrogged everyone. It's great to see that they have pitching. I will continue to advocate that they need one more bat in their lineup to really put them over the edge. The bottom half of their lineup, you know, can be a little suspect at times. You have this great pitching. They remind me of the Mariners. Great pitching. They got to go out and get one more bat to truly have a well-rounded team.
Mizorowski, just incredible. His strikeout to walk ratio. It doesn't even look real. Paul Skeens is second, and he's untouchable. I mean, 32.6% is just off the charts. And, you know, Christopher Sanchez and Mizorowski, I feel like, are going to battle this out potentially for the Cy Young, Tom. We're going to be talking about this on the show, of course, a little bit later on as well. But Mizorowski, the clear leader at this point, and my guess is, based on them putting him in the All-Star game last year after only pitching a handful of innings, this is going to be a very, very interesting debate because this game is in Philadelphia, Tom. And you know that they're going to want Christopher Sanchez on the mound to start this game. I don't think they're going to get it. I think it's going to be Mizorowski.
Yeah, certainly based as of now, if we were just looking at subjectively, you know, Mizorowski should be that guy starting the All-Star game. It being in Philly, we're going to talk about constantly, you know, between Sanchez, between Schwarber, the home run derby, Mike Trout, you know, also in the All-Star game coming back for his, you know, in his hometown. But Mizorowski certainly does deserve it when it's all said and done. I think he will end up getting it. I think that's what we're going to end up seeing. And to your point, I do believe that Sanchez and Mizorowski have separated themselves from Skeens when it comes to the NL Cy Young race. We will, of course, talk about that throughout the entirety of the season. But I see it as a 1A, 1B type scenario between the Miz and Sanchez.
Meanwhile, regardless of the results this weekend, the Mets are playing for next year. They traded David Peterson, of course, their pitcher. And, I mean, I don't think that's the full white flag, but I think we're pretty much there. On Wednesday night, they committed 6 errors. The broadcasters are going in on them. Vientos, Simeon, who was supposed to be a great defender. Lindor came back, made an error. Bo Bichette made an error. You know, again, regardless of what you saw this weekend, the season for them, Tom, is over. And I think especially Boston and New York, I think those are the two biggest disappointments this season. I know that there's some other teams with bad records, Kansas City, Detroit too, but I mean, how can you possibly have a payroll this high and not even sniff 500? It's amazing.
It really is. And to me, this almost seems like you need a complete reset. And, you know, they made some swings in the offseason where they go get Luis Robert, they go get Freddie Peralta, they're dealing with the injuries. And granted, some of that, you know, obviously just a little bit of bad luck, but to be this bad and almost look incompetent is just too much. Like, you can be a bad team and say, okay, we've had to deal with injuries, and that's one thing. But to be actually incompetent as a team in this market with this payroll, to your point, is just unacceptable. So it's not something that they need to go clean house with in the offseason, but they need to make major changes, or the Steve Cohen experiment clearly isn't going to be working out. You can't just keep throwing money at things. You need to actually develop the right type of team.
Cubs had a couple of big injuries, especially when you consider they traded for Edward Cabrera. He went on the injured list. They've acquired David Peterson in the trade with the Mets, and Cole Mathis goes back in return. I'm not really sure what he'll provide except for some minor league depth next season, but that is the full trade. And the trade season is coming up here in less than a month. Meanwhile, the Washington Nationals, where would they be if they could close out some games? I'm not sure. Now, look, full transparency, I'm not big on playing the what if game, Tom, because the Nationals have a lot of comebacks in games this year too. So who knows? But they probably, if they figure themselves to be in the playoff mix, are going to have to shore up that ninth inning. But they're a year ahead of schedule, Tom. So I just don't know that the Nationals are going to be in the market to potentially trade some young players for a closer. But they've had 47 save opportunities. They've blown the most in the majors, 26 blown saves for them. And so Nats fans are saying to themselves, hey, if we wouldn't have blown all these, maybe we'd be in first place. But hard to look back and figure those sort of things, because maybe some of your wins would have been losses.
Right. The what if game is certainly tough to play, especially so speculative when it comes to a team with a record of saying, oh, well, if they just do half of these or a third of these, oh, then they would have been in the wild card. They would have been leading the division. It's a bit too much. But to your point, they are ahead of schedule. Young GM, young manager, very young team overall. The offense is great, and they're pouring in runs, and they can explode for 8 runs in an inning, as they gave up the other day and had those come from behind wins. But to your point, they need to make some changes. They just don't need to do it right now. I would say, run out the rest of the season, and if you can happen to sniff a wild card, so be it. But really, it's about approaching the future and having this good of an offense, and then fixing the pitching staff in the offseason and moving into next year and truly being someone that can fight for a wild card.
Meanwhile, some news this week in the world of pitching. Dr. Neil Elatrash, who was on our show a couple of weeks ago, he's been cleared of any wrongdoing after baseball spoke to him this month. Of course, some controversy regarding some steroid allegations, but very obviously these were unfounded, Tom, if baseball's so quick to clear him.
Yeah, to me, this almost seems like a non-story. He was approaching the steroid or substance use in a specific manner in terms of injury recovery for something very specific. It's not about a player using him as a performance enhancer. The MLB investigated him. He's cleared. He's obviously the team doctor for the Dodgers and also the Rams in the NFL. It's a non-story. It's closed. We can all move on from this.
Garrett Crochet of the Boston Red Sox would be a pretty good trade chip, although they did sign him to a long-term extension. The Red Sox are going to be looking toward the future. They have no current present offense at all. Can't score runs, can't play defense. There's no rush here, I think. Chad Tracy, the interim manager of the Red Sox, says Crochet, they're just going to take their time with him. And why wouldn't they do anything else except maybe even just get him back for the end of the season, Tom? I mean, Boston has been an unmitigated disaster. It did work in Philly by firing the manager. It has not worked in Boston. They've been just as bad or worse.
Yeah, I would be stunned if Crochet has more than 2 starts for the rest of the entire season. Like if we set a line for it of 1.5, I would be stunned if he has 2 starts, 3 starts. There's no reason to rush him back. The season is lost. The team needs to sell off pieces. And if this is going to be what is really a Cy Young candidate in the AL, you need him healthy to start next season. You don't need to rush him back in any capacity, whether it's the shoulder, the oblique, he can't throw, he's playing catch, whatever it's going to be. Just shut it down and take as slow process as you possibly need to get your ace back for next season.
Yeah, maybe a start at the end of September, maybe 2. I think that's a possibility. But yeah, no, I think that we're coming to a close on his season. If he hasn't started throwing, that's not a guy we're going to see until the second half of the 2026 season. But speaking of the second half, we are there, which means, of course, the trade deadline is coming up and it's on the way. And we will dive into all of the potential rumors that are out there, not so much facts, and wonder as to whether or not this collective bargaining agreement discussion will lead to less trades. At least that seems to be one narrative being put out there. We'll dive into that and a whole lot more on this edition of Pro Baseball Today on SportsGrid. So stay on the grid. We'll be back with more right after this.
He gives them a chance, but they've got to keep putting people around him. I think he's a very good quarterback. I don't know that he's the one to elevate you all by himself. I think he still needs the help. Excellent player, perfect guy to lead your organization, perfect place for it. And by the way, I'd start him from day one. I wouldn't waste any time on it. But got to put pieces around him, and John Spytek has already started doing that.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
This is the third time he's been medically checked. Even the refs coming over. He's like, dude, like come on. Like after every sort of play in front of the net, the kind of goal he's done.
Yeah.
He's
stop jumping.
He's on the turf, like you said, like he's like driving off the top rope. Look at him here again. I give him credit. He's freaking fearless.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Are you ready for el verano más futbolero de tu vida? Latination Football Club turns into Copa Nation, our live stream experience every day de lunes a viernes, 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Pacific as well. Checking in after the games. In that slot between games, we got you, my friend. We're going to have celebrities, legends of the game, content creators, and a bunch of our friends that are going to keep you entertained and informed, letting you know what's happening all across the 3 countries that are going to be experiencing this crazy football tournament. Don't miss it. Copa Nation right here on Latin Nation every day. Check it out.
Earlier this week, the back and forth began again with the collective bargaining agreement. Welcome back to Pro Baseball Today. I'm Craig Mish along with Tom Vecchio. News and notes from the latest back and forth include the maximum contract length of 5 years for free agents. How about this? This is what the owners are suggesting. And basically, you will be able to sign a player for 6 years as long as they're your own player, very similar to the bird rights in the National Basketball Association. Also, the qualifying offer would go, and 5 years to free agents for players 30 or older. And also the minimum salary in baseball would increase significantly as well. Naturally, with everything that's being proposed, you're already hearing that the Players Association doesn't like it. They don't want it. And also a comment was made by Bruce Meyer about the international draft. So, Tom, look, I didn't expect anything to be done in June or July or even October, but it does feel like this road will continue to go. And the one thing that we see in all of these proposals is regardless of what the owners want to do, the players are just not going to agree to the salary cap. It feels like that is the main thing here. And unfortunately, I feel like all these other things can be worked out, and this is just the one big point of contention.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And, this is just, I think in any business negotiation in sports or anything, some side's going to throw something out there because that's what they ultimately want. And ultimately, they'll settle for 75% of that or 66% of that, 2/3 of it. But they're going to go to the extreme just because that's what they do in negotiations. So the players, of course, don't want the salary caps. That's going to limit how much that they themselves, also their teammates, will always end up making. I don't mind the 5-year, 6-year kind of scenario, which I think is ultimately good. It does give a reason for teams to retain the players, which is good for the fan bases. You want to see the star players stick around. So it does give players the incentive essentially to stay with the team that maybe drafted them or whatever it might be. So I'm okay with that. The salary cap, I understand, is never going to be worked out, as you said, over the summer. It's not going to be worked out till January, February at the earliest.
Right now, it looks like that there are some contract limits, and especially those 5-year deals that could be in play. And by the way, one of the other things that has been eliminated, Tom, and I'm all for this too, and I don't understand how the players are going to battle this one, is these silly deferrals that the Dodgers have everybody on. Now, obviously, some of this stuff would get grandfathered in the future, but this deferral nonsense is really a game changer, and it's only a game changer for a couple of teams. The owners in their proposal said that these will go away too, and I don't know, quite frankly, how the players can fight that one.
This is, first of all, they're crazy. Crazy that we're going to defer for 10 years and then we're just going to add it on and tack it on at the end. That's crazy. And this is, again, I think like business 101 negotiating. We're like, they're going to do something crazy, but then they're going to actually give you something in the offer that everyone wants. Of course, no one wants these crazy deferrals. So they're going to give you that one piece, but then they're going to, ask for something else crazy and get it all over the place. So get rid of deferrals. I'm fine with the 5-6 year thing. The salary cap's never going to work, or the players are never going to agree to that because that's going to limit things overall. But get rid of deferrals and at least have that as a one starting point and go from there.
There are some reports that there could be less trades this year than in years past, and I think that does make sense. It doesn't really take a genius, Tom, to realize that if you're trading contracts with money and you don't know what that money is going to look like in the future, it's going to be hard. But I think a lot of expiring contracts, Tom, will still be able to be moved. It's just the long-term ones probably going to have to stay put.
Yeah, this is really straightforward. If GMs, teams and players are unsure what next year is going to look like, there's a propensity just to hold on to what you have until we get next year resolved, which of course is not going to be happening come the trade deadline in July of this year. This is not going to be resolved, as I said, till December, January, February, whatever it might be. So to see fewer trades, I'm not going to be surprised out. I wouldn't be surprised if we get a lot of utility players, just not high leverage relievers move, just because if they are in expiring contracts, to your point, you might as well just get something back, and then you have to reset at the end of the CBA and move into next year.
Meanwhile, the Toronto Blue Jays, if they're going to fight, they're going to have to fight with some pitching. Of course, they sort of relied on Max Scherzer being healthy this season, and that has not happened. And their starting pitching, as you know, Tom, has not been as good as they would have thought. But that would be the dynamic for Toronto. They've not had the season that they wanted to, but this does follow the trend, Tom. In recent years, the team that loses the World Series tends to take a step back. That's what's happened for Toronto this year.
You certainly have a slow start for them. Their offense just simply isn't there. But, the pitching is really the issue. Shane Bieber just came back. How much can they get out of him? Scherzer's been on and off the IL. Jose Barrios isn't pitching at all this year. So they have a lot to figure out. And you can't just rely on Gausman, who hasn't looked like the Gausman of old. You only can trust Trey Savage so much. He can't be pitching every game. So they need some help. It really just comes down to what they're going to be able to get, because there's not too many quality starting pitchers. I think what come to mind would maybe be some of the options from Kansas City. If they can get someone like Michael Wacha, they can eat some innings and really just stabilize their rotation until Scherzer and Bieber can get back up to speed.
The Twins didn't really do anything in the offseason that would have indicated a rebuild, but now it seems like maybe they're interested in doing that, Tom. Joe Ryan, who was talked about in the offseason, they kept him. Ryan Jeffers, they ended up keeping him. And then, Pablo Lopez was supposed to start for them opening day. He got hurt too. So I'm not really sure what direction, honestly, Tom, the Twins are headed, because I would have figured that this is what they would have done this offseason. They fired their manager. It felt like there was a step back coming. And then their April was actually okay if you look at their record. But now it feels like they're headed in the other direction. But what could the Twins possibly expect would have happened this year?
I was very low on the Twins coming into the season. It was a middling roster beginning with them. You got to remember, last trade deadline, they traded away, 11, 12 different players and got rid of all of them. They were clearly selling there. They didn't do much to improve the roster in the offseason, and then they didn't trade away the best options that they could have gotten the most return for. You should absolutely be looking to move Joe Ryan. You can get something significant back from him. Ryan Jeffers could absolutely improve another contender as well. So you might as well get something back for them right now, which is in what is ultimately a very open AL Central, but they're just not the team that's going to be able to compete.
Tarik Skubal will be the biggest name, and he will be traded. I don't think there's any question about that. The Tigers would be malpractice if they didn't make this move. They have to, and just hope that they could get him back in the future. It's probably not likely. I don't know, Tom, where he's going to end up, and I don't think that we have any clear picture. The Braves are a name that's being discussed. They had a tough week, lost a bunch in a row before they got right. I could see that, Tom, but I could also see another team stepping in and getting it done too.
Yeah, it really just comes down to the prospect that the Tigers want back. They've put some verbiage out there of what type of players they want back, and it's going to be the best package they can get as we get closer to the deadline.
We'll be back with more, including the latest in Major League Baseball's All-Star Game voting here on Pro Baseball Today. Stick with us here as we'll be back after these quick messages on SportsGrid. Welcome back to Pro Baseball Today. The first round of voting for Major League Baseball's All-Star Game is officially in the books. But as of right now, it would appear that the Angels may not have anyone for the All-Star Game. So before we get to the voting, let's hit on who could potentially represent them. I don't know right now, Tom. Mike Trout may miss the game with an injury. Jose Soriano's gone the other way. Maybe it could be Reed Detmers, who's done a good job pitching for the Angels this season, but there is a report that says that Detmers could potentially be on the move. Now, the difference between him and Skubal and some others is the fact that Detmers, of course, under team control for a couple of more years. That's a lot different than Skubal, who has an expiring contract.
Yeah, a lot going on when it comes to the Angels. We touched on Trout last week with the hamstring injury if he's going to be ready to go for the All-Star game in Philly, his hometown. Soriano started off the season, was unbelievable. Like, we all knew he was due for regression. And granted, he pitched amazing. He's fallen back down to earth. Reed Detmers would be the best option for the Angels. I assume he'll be on the team come the All-Star game. But there's obviously no guarantee. Maybe a team wants to get out ahead of things and set the market for a pitcher. The Angels after that, I'm not sure who they could possibly send to the All-Star game. Zach Neto would be the one that comes to mind, but is he going to have enough votes? Is he really worthy of this spot, whatever it might be? It's up in the air for the Angels, as it has been for several seasons at this point.
The ballot update is in for the National League, and what a great season it has been for Andy Pages of the Dodgers, and certainly the fans have rewarded him. In fact, the Dodgers have the leading vote getters at first base, third base, designated hitter, and center field, which makes some sense because the Dodgers are certainly one of the best, if not the best teams in baseball. But then things get a little dicey, especially at second base, Tom, where Ozzie Albies, there's a lot of players who are having a better year than him. Drake Baldwin's missed a lot of time. Ronald Acuna Jr. is currently on the injured list, but I guess good job to Braves fans. They showed up to vote.
Yeah, we often see this year in and year out where big teams in big markets have multiple players, regardless if they're 100% deserving of having those spots. I think we need to have a bit more of a balance where the fan vote counts for 50% of something, and then maybe GMs or managers vote in something, and then we combine those and say, okay, we had, this player finished first, second, third, and we have a different order when it comes to managers and GMs, and kind of combine those so we get a mix of the players that actually deserve it, but then also who the fans want to see.
The American League's leading vote getters is a who's who of the injured list at this point, because Aaron Judge is on the injured list with over 1.7 million votes. Mike Trout is on the injured list with 1.7 million votes. I think the Royals have been missing Bobby Witt for about a week, and he's leading at shortstop. But maybe the biggest surprise of all is Toronto Blue Jays' Ernie Clement with over 2 million votes, Tom, here. So kudos to Blue Jays fans for getting it done, but there could be a lot of replacements coming in the AL.
Yeah, we often see this every year where a player is deserving of being an all-star, but he's just not healthy enough to play. He's going to have the votes. He should be there based on his stats if he's played, I think 75%, 80% of the games, and then he's just not ready to go. So when it comes to Clement's number at over 2 million, a little bit shocking to me. I think it's shocking to a lot of people. As you see, there's only 2 players with 2+ million all-star votes, which is Shohei Ohtani. No surprise there. Ernie Clement, Craig, I don't know if he'd be in my top 10 if I was guessing other players. I don't know if Ernie Clement would be there in my top 10 of guesses for a second player with 2+ million votes.
Now, there's nothing that we could do about this, Tom, but I mean, in the end, I don't know why people complain, because if we're going to open up the ballots for people to vote their favorite players in, this is going to happen. People think that maybe the process should change. I don't know. I don't think so. I feel like fans get their opportunity to vote. And in the end, the players and then, of course, the organizations have an opportunity to put in the reserves, including the managers. So I don't see this changing, even though, like, as an example, Acuna and Aaron Judge would not be all-stars this year. But because they're very popular, they get in.
Which can happen every year. I think the fans, of course, deserve their say. All-Star game ballot voting has always been a fun thing dating back to the times you actually go to a game and actually punch them out with the little holes. That was always fun to do. I would like to see the system tweaked a little bit, but we'll get injuries and we'll get replacements, and the fans will still show up.
Yeah, they definitely will. And it'll be a great scene in Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Park this year. Coming up, by the way, in less than a month, we've got the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. But as we said, the halfway point of the season has come and gone. So it's time for us to take a time out. And then when we come back, we'll visit with Gray Albright of Razzball. Also, Kevin Walsh will be with us to go over the latest in Major League Baseball as well. Then we'll preview the week ahead in baseball, including some great series coming up this week, including the Reds taking on the Brewers, and also the Battle of Pennsylvania as the Pirates take on the Phillies. So stick around with us. Plenty more to come here on Pro Baseball Today. We'll hit the fantasy angle with Gray Albright next. So don't go away. Welcome back to Pro Baseball Today here on SportsGrid. Craig Mish along with Tom Vecchio, and we have Gray Albright in the house from Razzball and Razzball.com as the fantasy baseball season, folks, is halfway over. Every team has played more than 81 games, which is kind of crazy. Felt like we were just starting off the season. But Gray, great to have you back here on the show. So here's the big adjustment for me this season in fantasy and in baseball as well. I don't know how you feel about it, and maybe I'm off, but you're following this just like I am every day. I feel like a few years ago, if I had a guy, let's just call it as granular as it is, if I had a guy hitting 230, I'm like, oh, this guy's hitting 230. Now I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. You're like, what's going on here in baseball? Like the average batting average in baseball, like, I mean, you can't even get to 250 anymore. I mean, to me, that's the big shift that I've seen this year.
Yeah, no, completely. Actually, it's so funny you bring this up because I was just watching the Athletics, and Tyler Soderstrom was coming up to bat, and they were going over his stats for the year, and he was hitting 246, and I was like, wow, he's hitting really well. That's good.
Right.
I was not expecting him to be hitting that well for average. Yeah, man, I think it's been a slow decline in contact for hitters over the last decade or so. It's been I think it's been building. So, ever since maybe I want to say 2019, it started to really seem like it took effect, and there's been a real decline in batting averages across the league where last year, I believe Trey Turner was the only NL player to hit 300 as he won the NL batting title, which,
Wow.
you have to go back to the late 60s when, right before they moved the mound down,
Sure.
where averages were that bad. So yeah, I think it's been something that's been in the works for a while with also with pitchers and going for strikeouts over, throwing to contact. Like there's some guys from not that long ago, like Greg Maddux, for instance, like he would have a K per 9 of like 5.5, 6.
Right. Yeah.
You barely you don't find the worst guys in the league with a 5.5, 6 K per 9, So yeah, it's definitely it's been something I think that's been going on for a while now.
Well, speaking of the Athletics, if we want to go a little bit deeper into things, we got a preview of things in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago where there were runs aplenty. So how are you changing things when it comes to evaluating some of those players, at least from a long-term potential dynasty perspective? As someone that has shares of Soderstrom and Gage Jump and whomever it might be on the Athletics, I'm excited about their offense, but I'm also worried about the downside for pitchers in Las Vegas.
Yeah, no, completely. I was saying after the Vegas series, I was saying on Razzball that I want to acquire every single A's hitter that I can right now because, Vegas is going to play. Now, obviously, they're not going to play in a minor league stadium when they finally do get there, but it is going to be, I believe Vegas is at 2,000 feet elevation. So nearly, it's not quite a mile high like Coors, but it's going to play very hitter friendly. So as far as like all the A's players, hitters go, I would be acquiring A's hitters like crazy because they're all going to be good. Like as you saw in the late 90s with the Rockies, like before, people really started like taking into account other factors. It's going to be an absolute hitter environment for quite a few years, I imagine, when they first get there. And as for like Gage Jump, I would probably be worried about the pitchers. Just as excited for the hitters. Jump, absolutely. Keyword there is jump because
you nailed it.
Fire him. Yeah, I feel like Gage Jump looks really good in road games right now, and that's where I would be playing him probably for the near future.
Let's continue on this A's topic, but more of the first round in fantasy baseball topic, because Nick Kurtz, right now is not the favorite to win the MVP in the American League right now, Gray, but he is among the leaders because Witt has gotten hurt and certainly Aaron Judge has not played the majority of the season. Do you think that the first round in fantasy has delivered this year, maybe less or more than others? I know the month of April, everyone who drafted Nick Kurtz inside the top 3 or top 4 was like, oh my gosh, what a busted pick. And then all of a sudden he started going nuts in May and June.
Oh yeah, no, I think this might be one of those years where I can't remember a year actually in the past where it's been so crazy where the top 10 is coming into the year versus right now. It's just completely different. You had you basically have every top 10 player so far has been a bust except for not a bust necessarily, but like Jose Ramirez, for instance. Like there's been injuries or
injured. Yeah.
Everyone in the top 10 aside from Ohtani. It's like Judge, Ramirez. Imagine back in March, people were like, "Oh, I can't wait to draft Fernando Tatis Jr." Like, oh God, he's sitting on like 3 homers. So yeah, no, Nick Kurtz though. I'll say with him, I wouldn't be shocked if he's a perennial 450 on base percentage guy once we get the A's to Vegas. I said, I can't make this bet that I know of, but I was saying that if there's a prediction market out there that makes a bet that says Nick Kurtz is a future Hall of Famer, I would put $5 on that right now because if he stays with the A's and stays relatively healthy, I can't imagine him not reaching 500 homers and having insane on base percentage. Point. Yeah, Nick Kurtz looks like a future Hall of Famer, and we're 18 months into his career. It's not very long into his career, and he's already looks amazing. So yeah, unfortunately with fantasy, at least most leagues, it's 5x5 for most leagues. So he's not going to give you a ton of steals, but he's absolutely going to hit 45 homers and around 290 with, the runs and the RBIs that come in that lineup. And they won't be that bad, actually, because the lineup, because the home park is so good, the lineup's actually not that bad. So, Nick Kurtz, I believe, is probably a top 5 pick for next year as of right now. So he's very close to basically, without steals, he's basically doing as good as he can do as far as fantasy goes.
Now, when it comes to draft picks, you're talking about who hasn't performed, who has performed, whatever it might be. Who's a player that has surprised you that you were out on to start the year? Who was a player that you were avoiding drafting but has actually been, a pleasant surprise for you?
I'd have to go with Pete Crow Armstrong. I didn't really, because of last year's second half, he had fallen off pretty badly after his really good first half. And I thought the league caught up with him. But as we see with most great hitters, the league caught up to him, but then he caught up to the pitchers again. So he struggled out of the gate in April, but then he really started to come on in May. And June, he's been probably the player of the month for the NL in June. He's just been fantastic. And, thankfully, I happen to have him in a keeper league because I just had him for such a cheap price. But I was completely out on Pete Crow Armstrong, much to my chagrin for most of my leagues.
Yeah, well, I would tell you this, Gray, if anybody could predict the weeks that Pete Crow Armstrong goes off, they'd be very rich, because the season is the end of March, April, May, and June. And Gray, the dude has had 3 good weeks, but they've just been incredible. Like, they've been amazing and incredible. The rest of the season's been a dud.
Yeah, no, completely. He's really been the prototypical hot, cold player. But when he's hot,
absolutely,
he's absolutely hot.
Yeah, he has. Dansby Swanson, by the way, drove in 11 runs for the Cubs early this week, too. All right, Gray, great stuff as always. We'll catch up with you hopefully soon, and happy July 4th holiday to you and certainly all your subscribers over at Razzball. You want to make sure you subscribe because you can get all of the streaming information for starting pitchers and who to use each week, and there's changes every week via the Streaminator over at a subscription with Razzball.com. Make sure you log in and subscribe right now. Thanks again, Gray. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.
All right, Gray Albright with us. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with more. We'll also talk some prediction markets in the second hour of the show, so make sure you stay with us. We'll be back right after this quick break.
Are you ready for el verano más futbolero de tu vida? Latination Football Club turns into Copa Nation, our live stream experience every day, de lunes a viernes, 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Pacific as well. Checking in after the games. In that slot between games, we got you, my friend. We're going to have celebrities, legends of the game, content creators, and a bunch of our friends that are going to keep you entertained and informed, letting you know what's happening all across the 3 countries that are going to be experiencing this crazy football tournament. Don't miss it. Copa Nation right here on Latin Nation every day. Check it out.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Their pitching has been really good in their bullpen, too. So Chris Getz, their general manager, credit to him. This guy was getting pounded a couple of years ago for decisions and everything like that, but man, it is seemingly working out. The fans, by the way, all of a sudden are pouring in there. Their attendance is on the rise too. So a great sign that the White Sox are in this thing. Now, long term, I don't know. Like, is this a postseason team? Is it a deep postseason team?
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Pro Baseball Today here on SportsGrid. Craig Mish along with Tom Vecchio. We got Kevin Walsh in the house to talk a little baseball as well as he joins us on this edition of Pro Baseball Today. Hey, Kevin, great to catch up with you here on the show. And, Kevin, to me, what strikes me the most is that they say the baseball season is long, and it really is. I mean, it does feel like it's a long season, but we're halfway done, man. Like we're halfway through the Major League Baseball season. I feel like I was appearing on your shows and coming on and doing discussions with you back in March and April, and here we are.
Yeah, I mean, we were a few months ago being like, should we panic about the Mets now? And then, a couple weeks later, we're like, should we panic now? And it turns out it was all bad. It turns out the Mets stink. And they're kind of like one of the first teams who are like, yep, we're definitely sellers here. So what a law. Tell you what, it's not going quick for Mets fans, Craig. I'll tell you that much.
Now, Kevin,
Definitely
if I remember correctly, Kev, you have a Mizorowski strikeouts ticket. Have you looked to get any action, or do you have any other action on his NL Cy Young chances? Because it is a pretty close race between him, Chris Sanchez. Skeens is always going to be lurking. Are we going to talk about Ohtani? Are we going to talk about Yamamoto, Chase Burns? Where are you on Miz actually winning the Cy Young as well?
So just quickly on that Mizorowski number, and I promise I'm not bringing this up to tout myself in any capacity here. The number was 150 and a half. He's gonna clear it at the All-Star break, right? He just is, and the books don't set bad numbers to set bad. Like, he is smashing expectations. I put an Alton of 200 plus, and I was like, that's as crazy as we'll get with this. No reason. And now it almost is like, is this going to be a 300 strikeout season for Mizorowski? I didn't play him for the Cy Young because we know it's typically difficult to kind of make the innings climb that will be required for him here to win that award. But man, it might really happen for this guy. I find this award to be down to him and Sanchez already, kind of. I know that might be dismissive of Skeens, but that's how I see it.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like that. I guess what I wonder, Kevin, is that, this whole thing, and we could play this game with everyone, but it's whether or not he stays healthy for the rest of the season, and can a pitcher throw at that kind of emphasis and velocity and stay healthy the whole year? What's also fun for me, Kevin, is that an interesting conversation to have, which Tom and I were having before, which was we got the All-Star game coming up in just a few weeks. And as you know, that thing is in Philadelphia. And if it's close, they're going to pick the Miz over Sanchez to start in his home park. You don't
Who's
think
making
so?
that decision? They better not. Well, they better not do that. They made the insane decision. Was it last year, Craig? Where they put Mizorowski in over Sanchez because Sanchez
in the game
was like, I'm not going to pitch. So then he misses out on an all-star slot.
I know.
Here's the thing. Even if we were to have this huge debate of who's been better, starting the all-star game isn't strictly down to who's been the best. There is a ceremonial aspect to it.
100%.
So I think that would be, if I were Chris Sanchez, I'd skip the All-Star game again. How about that? If they're going to give the ball to Philly fans should boo him. And listen, I know that that's just going to go right into the bucket of, Philly fans and what you expect. They'd be right.
I agree.
They'd be right to boo Mizorowski if he started the All-Star game.
Yeah, so the All-Star game in 2022 was in Los Angeles, and I went to that. Sandy Alcantara won the Cy Young Award that season. He was the best pitcher in baseball at the All-Star break, and Kevin Clayton Kershaw started the All-Star game. I don't know if you remember that. I don't even think he pitched.
Yeah. Was that like retirement tour 2 for Clayton? He's on his way.
yeah. That was that. Yeah, but anyway, I digress.
It's a great race, though.
It really is, and to kind of piggyback off that, sticking in the NL. How do we view the market with the Dodgers up the top? Do you see the Miz or Sanchez for the Brewers and the Phillies respectively? Do you see them leading their teams as being a true contender for the Dodgers? Because we know everything's going to be skewed in their favor, but do any of those teams, or the Braves, if they can get healthy, do any of them actually present a challenge to the Dodgers making the World Series again?
I think so, just due to I still lean towards this is baseball. And last year, the Dodgers were seen as a foregone conclusion, and I entered into the World Series picking Toronto. And we saw how the series played out. I think a lot of people would say, unlucky to not win that, certainly right there for the Blue Jays. So I think the other thing is, if we ranked the 5 best teams in baseball, you could make a pretty good argument 4 of the 5 are in the National League. It means the path is going to be one the Dodgers will have to earn. Now, they are, I feel like, not playing supernova baseball right now and have the best record in the sport. They're horrifying. We know it. We get it. But it's baseball, and I think that we can still lean on that when it comes to having suspense within the sport.
Yep, I would agree. All right, as we close out this, we'll bring Kevin back here in the second part of our conversation here. Which team do you think is most likely to just wave the white flag completely? Is it the Mets or is it the Red Sox in 2 markets that never rebuild, Kevin? Is it the Mets or is it the Red Sox? Hard to believe that we're having this conversation. Both will not make the postseason this year.
My answer to your question is Boston, because we can talk more about the Mets. I don't think the Mets are fully waving the white flag unless they get rid of Soto. And to me, anything else is just kind of the Boston. Outside of Roman Anthony, is there someone on Boston that's supposed to be untouchable here? But also, like, in terms of attractiveness, it's a little up and down. The Red Sox made a decision to fire Cora very early, right? A similar one to the Phillies, and one that people thought the Mets should make. And you kind of learn, all right, it's not just this cheat code to get back up over 500. And Boston were supposed to be good. Like, that is one of the aspects of this whole thing where we can do some hindsight analysis of, this wasn't. Boston were supposed to be good. That's just the reality of it. This is a full disaster. They're the worst team in the American League.
It's hard to believe. All right, Kevin is going to stick around with us. We'll come back with more conversation on this edition of Pro Baseball Today. Don't go away.
He gives them a chance, but they've got to keep putting people around him. I think he's a very good quarterback. I don't know that he's the one to elevate you all by himself. I think he still needs the help. Excellent player, perfect guy to lead your organization, perfect place for it. And by the way, I'd start him from day one. I wouldn't waste any time on it. But got to put pieces around him, and John Spytek has already started doing that.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio. Only on SportsGrid.
This is the 3rd time he's been medically checked. Even the refs coming over. He's like, dude, like come on. Like after every sort of play in front of the net, the kind of goal he's done. He's
stop jumping.
He's on the turf, like you said, like he's like driving off the top rope. Look at him here again. I give him credit. He's freaking fearless.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Are you ready for el verano más futbolero de tu vida? Latin Nation Football Club turns into Copa Nation, our live stream experience every day, de lunes a viernes, 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 p.m. Pacific as well. Checking in after the games. In that slot between games, we got you, my friend. We're going to have celebrities, legends of the game, content creators, and a bunch of our friends that are going to keep you entertained and informed, letting you know what's happening all across the 3 countries that are going to be experiencing this crazy, crazy football tournament. Don't miss it. Copa Nation right here on Latin Nation every day. Check it out.
Welcome back to Pro Baseball Today here on SportsGrid. Craig Mish, along with Tom Vecchio. We also have Kevin Walsh in the house. Kevin, I mean, we start off with the hottest topic going right now, and the one that I think that everybody wants to discuss, which is what in the world is going on with Tunisia? Nah, I'm just kidding.
Yes.
But you can catch Kevin on all the World Cup shows too. I got you there. You didn't see that one coming. The collective, I mean, I'm doing it too, Kevin. The collective bargaining agreement is not yet complete. Doesn't look anywhere close. It feels like, I mean, I don't know. Me, I am probably on the island here, but it feels like when the owners send this stuff, it's very well organized, and I'm like, okay, like some of this stuff it does make sense, and then the players come back like, no, we're not doing that. You know what I think, Kevin? Maybe I'm wrong here, and I have a little insight, but it feels like anything that is thrown out is irrelevant until they get the salary cap and the floor situation worked out, and it's like all these little things are chips. But the big one is the cap and the floor. And I think if that gets settled, I think everything else falls in line. So it's kind of like the owners are like, all right, well, we'll give you this, we'll give you this, we'll give you this, but we're taking this. And until that conversation is thrown out, the players are not going to do it. I've maintained we need a cap and a floor. I'm not getting off that boat. I'm staying on until the ship sinks. But what did you make of the latest earlier this week?
So this is so tricky, but to me, every single time we get a piece of news, it seems like the number one reaction, instead of, oh, that makes sense, right? Or is get ready for a lockout. That constantly seems to be, so that's kind of what I'm doing here in a way, right? It just tells me that, and this is where baseball is in such an odd spot, because the very simple argument of, salary caps exist in all of these other leagues. Why can't it exist here, right? But if I said, hey, we're going to put a salary cap into the UFC, you know what would happen? Dana would close the company. He'd close the company before he would do that. Sometimes it's just so hard to exist for so long and implement something, even if it seems totally, totally logical. Now, I'm not saying there's no way we don't end up with a salary cap. I'm just thinking right now, and I don't know. Listen, you guys, I think, know it better than I do, so I'll defer, but it does feel like we are absolutely getting a lockout. Like the idea of April baseball feels like zero to like, I mean, I don't know, very low right now on the percentage board to me.
It certainly doesn't feel good as of now. We constantly talk about, the December deadline for the CBA. Ultimately, I don't think that matters too much. What matters is, are we going to be having spring training on March 1st? Are we going to be having pitchers and catchers reporting? When it comes to some of the specifics for the CBA, the 5-6 year rule for saying that you can only re-sign free agents for up to 5 years, and you can re-sign them for a sixth if they were, on your team. How do you feel about that? Because it does limit these massive contracts, and also the getting rid of the deferred money, I think, is a fantastic idea.
Well, yeah, so it is funny, right? But one of the reasons that Dodgers fans are so loud is sometimes this all just does feel like yeah, the Dodgers went too far, right? When you see deferred money, does anybody think about anything other than Shohei? No. Right? Like, it's very cute to me that, like, cute's probably not the right word, but just like they mentioned Soto's deal. Like, okay, yeah, like we're not here talking about Soto, guys. Like, it is what it is, but I just, the Soto stuff's interesting though, in a way, right? Like, is anybody happy about that? I know, like, when I say happy about that, Soto's obviously happy he got the deal, but would the Mets have been able to get Soto if they weren't able to offer it? If everybody was able to just offer 5,202, is he a Met? Maybe. Probably. He might be a Yankee. Who knows? Maybe he's like, I'll just stay in Washington. Like, I just think it might be this very interesting thing where everyone's like, oh, we lose, kind of. Again, Craig, am I wrong, or the vibes around this terrible right now?
You're a little strong on it. You're a little on the stronger side than most, at least from in the industry I'm working in. I think most people Not that you're wrong and Tom is right or Tom's right. I think December does not seem realistic at all. But I think most people are saying that the minute that the lockout begins is when the real discussion begins too, and that will be in December, and then 90 days, December, January, February. I don't have any insight more than you guys do, but I think it's a little strong to say that. I would start worrying in February.
I just wanted to add quickly, though. We've seen lockouts in other sports for less drastic changes. You're talking about changing.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We got to give Kevin his bird rights. He's got to go. And welcome back to Pro Baseball Today here on SportsGrid. Craig Mish, Tom Vecchio taking a look at the week ahead in Major League Baseball. Now, of course, after the Sunday games are